Hi, I'm Elliot Knight, and this is my Quintessential Gentleman cover shoot. I started out in the UK as an actor. I went to drama school. I did plays in school, and something I was always very focused on was trying to find what felt true to my identity, not what was reflected around me as what I should be doing, not what I should fit into. A lot of what I saw around me, I didn't feel like I related to or I fit into, and it gave me a lot of the tools I needed to move forward in my career. But I actually think most of what informed me came after I moved to the US. I had my very first job when I was in the UK. I was leading a show. I didn't know anything about how to do it right. I just loved it. I had this passion and excitement to be involved in the play I'd always done as a kid. I was getting to just live my fantasy. And the experience of doing that compared to the experience of watching that back and hearing the critical voices and understanding that this is a job, not just a playground. That was the most informative experience in the UK for me, was realizing I get to do what I love to do. That's a gift. I have to bring joy to it or there's no soul. The skill is how to refine that and execute as well as be present in my joy. And that's what I carry forward with me now today. The difference between the entertainment industry in the US and the UK. I'd say the US is obviously a lot bigger, but I have found that the scope of what we're trying to achieve and what we're reaching for is generally bigger in the US. The UK, I love, it's my roots and it's my original home. There is an encouragement that I feel in the US and in LA specifically to follow your own path and go after what you want. And no one's trying to set ceilings on your expectations for yourself. There's almost a shyness I felt in the UK, I felt in myself, to not dare too much, to not reach too much, to not expect too much for yourself or of yourself. And that just never really sat right with me. I I didn't want to put a ceiling on my own dreams, and I didn't want to be told that I shouldn't be dreaming. Because at that point, I don't really understand what we're doing living if we're not allowed to dream. And so when I moved to the US, that's something I found. Everyone is so motivated to go after what they want, and everyone gives themselves the gift of believing that they can do it. It doesn't matter if it happens or not. It doesn't matter if it goes the way that they planned or expected or they were told it needs to. They just let themselves chase and be in pursuit and be in motion. And that's the most valuable difference I found, and why I'm so lucky I've been able to be out here doing this as long as I have. When I'm thinking about identity, about racial identity, about sexual identity, being queer, finding my own comfort spot in the truth of all of those things, it's a daily practice, it's a daily reflection, because I think a lot of what drives my creative pursuits is trying to find, at first, it was trying to find a home for my truth that felt so different in its intricacies to everything I saw around me. At some point, it went from finding a home to creating a home. Instead of asking people for acceptance, it's like I have to find and create my own acceptance and then welcome people into my understanding of myself. Um, I'm mixed race, black, white, English, Jamaican, born and raised in the UK, moved to the US. Black identity here is something so powerful and so important, but also I think respectfully so different than how I grew up, so different than my understanding of myself. And it's been a challenge to not fall into the trap of feeling like I need to understand my own self through the lens of Hollywood. I think that's really difficult, and it can create a very narrow box for the space you have to live in if you feel like you have to fit the expressions of what someone who looks like you should be just through TV and film. It's just not big enough. The pursuit of the industry should be to widen its scope always. And like broaden the spotlight on who it's allowing to be seen more and more. And that's what I want to contribute to doing in my own small way. To know that whatever your reality is, to know that it's valid and that it deserves a space and to be seen is important. You focus on that and take that forward and carry your own torch. So I guess that's what I'm trying to do. And then hopefully that can impact anyone wherever it can for themselves. I know there's always a lot of conversation around, Brits coming to America, playing American roles. Some people, there's a whole conversation around it. And I get it. There should be conversation around it. I think that's good. This is a competitive industry where there's no guarantees. And so much of the choices people make are about their perceptions. And that's what I'm more focused on. I'm about truth and honesty, and that has to be the goal. I don't want to get by on a perception of thinking that because I'm more believable as something isn't really the question. It's more, who are you palatable to? And are those the people making the decisions? If ever there are times when I feel like I have a privilege of palatability to certain people in positions of power, I do carry a responsibility to make sure that my opportunity is pointed towards other people who weren't as palatable to that person. My goal is not me succeeding alone. That's a lonely journey that doesn't have a reward at the end that I'm interested in particularly. This is, if one rises, we all rise. And it's not just who looks like me, who identifies as me, who feels like me. It's why I enjoy acting in the first place. It's a communication tool. It's about family. It's about connecting with people and going on the journey together, helping show the light forwards. So yes, I want there to be responsibility in what we do. I think that's what gives it its value and its purpose and its soul. And we shouldn't get too concerned with other people's opinions or conversations around that topic. Just know that what you do for you and respecting yourself can have a positive knock-on effect for other people around you and anyone who will engage with your work at any point. I think being an actor in Hollywood, being queer, being Black, is not easy for anyone. And there is no path that's been laid before you that offers any safety or anything close to a guarantee of things going the way that you want. So far in my journey, the most important thing I've learned is, if you care about the work, if you care about the creative purpose of what you're doing, the best thing that you can honor is your truth. Whether you feel like you're telling a story that's close to your identity or not, you're not going to go anywhere if you don't know where you're working from first. Not only to know it, but to accept it. I think that can be a very real challenge for a lot of people. Feeling like there is a place for you where you're welcome and you exist and you feel free. If you don't have an element of freedom in your work, then you can't play. If you can't play, you're not going to shine in what you're doing. I've had those experiences, many experiences where I am and feel stiff or afraid or nervous or not welcome. And unfortunately, the person who's going to suffer in the end product is still you. It's not the people around you who are afforded the gift of comfort, who are automatically feeling welcome and invited. And that doesn't just have to be about race or sexuality. It can be anything, but those have been my experiences of that. I feel like the industry's moving beyond tokenism for queer characters. The industry's always moving. I think that's the important starting ground. And also it's important to acknowledge that there is no end point with something like this. There is no full quota of representation that's organic and feels natural, and that's just not a tangible object that you can grab and achieve. So the goal is the motion for me. I think as long as we are keeping it in our minds and we're informing it into our actions, then we're doing the right thing. Is the industry entirely where I and many other queer people would like it to be? No. No, of course not. I think you know that when you feel comfortable stepping onto a set as a queer person, and that not needing to feel like a secret, or you not feeling like the way you're going to be seen is different, or oh, you're queer, that means that you can't play this or you can't do this, to have all these limitations put on you. I wouldn't say that 100% of people in the community feel that way. Depending on who's making it or what the understanding is, at a core level, there is always a risk of oversaturating something almost to make the point. Or it even speaks to the limit of spaces where there is room for queerness to exist. When there is an opportunity, there's a tendency to want to pack it in with everything that we can, and you risk it ending up becoming like a cliche or borderline offensive, or actually not representing as many people as it could. That's something I felt is true for me, definitely, just as a person. I don't see myself in a lot of queer representation and storytelling in LA, in Hollywood, through that lens. I think if you're focusing on queerness first, that's already a mistake a lot of the time. You always have to start with humanity. You always have to start with a person being a person. Otherwise, you automatically put a filter in place to look through, and it's already not the story it should be, you know? So for me, if ever I get the opportunity to incorporate more of myself or my understanding or experience of a queer reality into my work, it's not going to be intended to be a poster for the queer community. It's going to be intended to be a poster for this story, this moment, this truth. And there is queerness that lives in it. It doesn't have to be it to have a valid place, you know? But I love that question because that's really important to me. And so many people are doing amazing things and amazing work. So it's also important to support queer creatives, to let them feel welcome and to let them tell their stories the way that they want to, not the way that someone feels is the most palatable or eye-catching for them to do that. Like, I know enough people who have gone down that route and ended up so unhappy in themselves as people, and it's not worth that. It's not worth feeling disconnected from yourself and your own value just because someone gave you an opportunity to be seen and told you it's going to be true to who you are. It's like they don't know who you are 9 times out of 10. So you lead how you want to tell your stories. On Countdown, I play Keontae Bell. He is a third generation federal agent with the FBI. His grandfather was one, his father was one. And I see him as a very dedicated, very capable, very driven, young black man who wants to prove himself. And perhaps is still on a journey of accepting himself too. And I think there's a lot for him to figure out about how he feels on his journey towards getting to where he wants to go, which ultimately is first black director of the FBI, which, yes, please. There's an element of preparing for this role in Countdown for me that was focused on the job at hand, being an agent, being physically in shape and skilled enough and aware enough to make sure that I qualify for what this role would entail and what this job would entail in a non-fictional sense, which I always love and I enjoy. I love physical roles and getting stuck into action, and that's been so amazing about this opportunity. There's also an element of preparing for any role when I'm in the US for me that feels quite delicate, which is approaching the identity aspect and the representation of that. I'm so grateful to be a black person and character in such an amazing show and on an amazing platform where the potential to be seen and heard and felt is huge. At the same time, it can bring this element of worry that I'm doing it right or that I'm not doing it right. And I talk about this with a couple of my castmates as well a lot, how it's a time when it's important to remember there are many ideas that are all true about how we can represent a character and their culture and their identity, the way that you either feel comfortable with or the way that you feel gives you the best scope and support to tell a human story in the right way is probably the right way for you to go. And so I love the opportunity, and I know that there are so many other talented people who would bring their own spin on it, and that would be valuable too. And I just want to remember that as I as I keep doing this for as long as I get to, yeah, it's a golden opportunity, and that's what's important to me when I'm thinking about how I'm going into it. It's awesome working with all the other actors. This has been a uniquely enjoyable job, and we've been saying that a lot as we're talking about the show, and it's the kind of thing that you would expect to hear. It's genuinely true. And I'll put it this way: to feel at home, welcomed, accepted, relaxed, like I've been talking about, are all such important ingredients to getting the best output that you can. It's been true for all of us that we've entered this experience and this opportunity, one, with full gratitude. It's a gift to be working at the best of times, and the industry lately has not been the best of times for anyone, actors included. So a room full of people who are so good at what they do, so happy to be there, and want to support each other is the ultimate recipe. That's been incredible on this job, and I think that's been true for everyone. To show up every day and have fun, be in our state of play, to allow ourselves to be known by each other too on like a deeper level. I remember chatting to Jensen just casually on set at one point and talking to him about why this role meant so much to me, specifically to do with the potential for representation and my own goals for myself and things that I want to prove for myself. And he received them with such a full and open heart and so much encouragement. And then I knew from that day, this person every day on set knows what I'm doing here that's beyond just being on a TV show and wanting to be an actor. He understands my purpose as a person and how this is feeding me and how he can support that. And he did, and multiple cast members have, and we're doing that for each other. It's just, it's a dream. It's a dream. I think we'd all do this for a while if we get allowed to. There's a huge element of fun in our show that makes it different from other crime thrillers in this genre. We've got not only unpredictable and edgy characters, but also a storyline that keeps you guessing. That means no one is safe and you can never guess the timing. Also, we have a format that allows the story to be told in such a full way. You know, this is going to drop with the first 3 episodes on June 25th. Then we have an episode coming out each week. And every episode is packed with action, twists, and turns and developments. It was hard for me to keep up watching them. That's why we had to space it out while we made it. Each episode feels like a movie packed into a can, which has been so amazing to be a part of and tell. So I think I'm really excited for people to go on the fun ride with us and not just feel like they're following a case and then it wraps up neatly and then it's done. Nothing is neat about this show. The one thing that you can know is it's always going to excite you. It's always going to be enjoyable, but you're not going to know how or what's going to happen. And that's the magic recipe that I've come to really love and that Derek Haas is so good at too. So it's going to be a good time. Being a part of Call of Duty was huge for me. You know, it wasn't necessarily a specific goal I had because it wasn't an expectation of myself. But to my point, you can surprise yourself, or your journey can surprise you because you're not in control of it as much as you'd like to be or as you might think. I love being a part of that world. It's a huge stage to be on that I think Hollywood is still catching up to realizing. The gaming industry is so much bigger than you and is reaching so many more people on a day-to-day basis than we are. The potential to tell powerful and meaningful stories through that platform is huge. So realizing that I'm entering not just the gaming world, but a huge title like that millions of people are engaging with every day, made me realize things like, how does this franchise portray its heroes? Up until the point that I was in that franchise as a lead character, there had never been a hero portrayed in their leads who was not a white man. I'm like, okay, great. We have something important to do here, something exciting. It's not about me, it's about the moment. This is a time when people around the world can see themselves as a hero and they can engage through play as themselves being the hero with someone who might look more like them or sound more like them. There's no real at least for my character, not a proper queer representation for my character. That's not what the character is, but it does exist in the games. And to know that there's so much thought behind the scenes of the people making these games, they're dedicated to authenticity, they're dedicated to representation, and that's something that I'm always here to support. So, yeah. At the same time, it's also a struggle sometimes. You can feel like you need to fit into, again, a very narrow idea of what strength is to play, you know, a soldier or someone who was in the SAS and is saving the world. There is no reason why queerness should not exist in the conversation around strength and the reality around strength. I've always felt that in myself, and it's something that I hope we can echo and continue in that opportunity and others as well. Working in Call of Duty and games like that I've been lucky enough to, has really helped me understand the power of voice and respect the talent that exists in the game industry, specifically in animation as well. There are such talented performers who are able to fill characters with such a fullness of life, and they only have their voice to use. And I think working in TV and film more, there's less focus on the vocal aspect of your work. It's a much more visual medium. So obviously, in terms of the work that we do at its root, so there's more focus on how are things looking, and that can be a trap as well to try not to fall into. But it's another challenge I appreciate. You know, you can't just walk into a game or a voice focused piece of work and automatically know how to approach it the correct way. It's very technical, requires a lot of skill. I'm certainly not the most skilled at it, but it's amazing to be around people who are and learn from them and be inspired by them. Um, but I appreciate people focusing on it more, and like I appreciate that question too, because it's there's a huge wealth of talent there, and I would love for those people to rise to the top more, to be able to share their expertise. One piece of advice to myself before moving to LA. Well, I came to LA with a lot of enthusiasm. I tend to live that way. I try not to worry too much or focus on how things might turn out. I'm just here for the journey and the adventure. I think that's a pretty good way to be in LA. Come to LA for the adventure. Don't try to shape it, and don't expect what people are going to tell you. Listen, I've been told by people in the past, the best thing I can do for myself is to hide my queerness. And I'm sure those same people would tell me to hide my blackness if that was a thing that was possible, right? That is not good advice. These are people who, they're well-intended, they care about you, but they have their blinders on where they think they're looking at what's best for you just by your career trajectory. And what they're actually telling you to do is minimize yourself so that you're more palatable to the people in control. I'm more about get the people with the better palates in the positions of control, because that benefits everyone. So I think the best advice I give to myself is don't listen to people that don't know you, and don't listen to people who don't know why you're here, because they're not going to lead you where you want to go, even if you end up with the rewards other people are looking at. If it's not your reward, it's not for you. It's not going to do anything for you either. You have to be there for you first. Finding out your truth, loving your truth, and empowering your truth are three really important things I think you can do if you're focused on the greatest and most valuable output from your work as an actor. Also, love yourself and believe in yourself. There is definitely something to be said for acknowledging that you exist in your own identity, 100%. Also, there can be a weight attached to the label of being different that isn't helpful. And I just don't have time for that shit anymore. To be honest, I realize I've carried that for so long, being worried about not fitting in. It's like, how are you going to stand out and fit in at the same time? If you want to be seen, then you can't be focusing on how you can best camouflage yourself to what's already known and honestly doesn't have that much interesting storytelling potential. What we know the least about are the stories we should be focused on telling the most and be the most excited to be a part of. For me, what drives me is I know that there's so many elements of my own story. There's so many elements of my own story that might not be entirely unique, but they're so unexplored and so unknown or misunderstood The joy I get from the idea of just telling even a part of my own story is huge. Let that drive you. So for other people, whatever's true for you in that sense, let that drive you. It's special, and it's where your joy lies. Follow your joy and follow your freedom. Give yourself a space to play. Don't worry about what other people are doing or the time it's happening in. Just be connected to you. At this point in my career and in my life, success for me, success for me looks like happiness. It looks like calm, peace, acceptance, connection. It looks like very little of what Hollywood looks like from the outside. There's there's so much in the optics of this job and this life, and I think for a lot of people who are younger and looking at this as a profession or anything Hollywood adjacent, if you're in it for the glamour, you can find it more easily somewhere else doing something else. Um, Success for me is not about how much I'm working, but what I get to work on, what stories I get to tell. It's not about how many people know my name, but how connected do I feel to my own? It's not about how much money do I have, but how much safety and security have I developed access to in myself? All of those other things can lead you down a path that's not going to necessarily take you forward. They're just going to keep you running on a treadmill, and you might find one day that you're in the same spot. A lot of the people that I know and love and look up to, being on posters and in movies and on TV and having money and fame, are none of the things that make them happy necessarily. There's gratitude for them. They're amazing luxuries and gifts, but they often tend to be the root of their discontent and their unhappiness. And so I've learned, and I'm grateful to have learned soon enough for me, not to focus on those things as the goal. They are the potential gifts along the way, but the goal is a lot more personal and grounded. And I'm so happy I know that.